Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar, Part 3 of the Deploy Innovative Apps to Extend SAP SuccessFactors Solutions with SAP HANA Cloud Platform webinar series. Today's event is entitled Reduce Costs and Speed Up Your SAP SuccessFactors Implementation, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by SAP. My name is Steve Paul. I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenters, and later in the program we'll ask for your feedback. You can participate in our Q&A session by asking questions about the information presented in the webinar at any time. Just type your question into the Q&A text box located below the speaker bios on the left, and then click the Submit button. We'll answer as many questions as time permits after our presentation. Slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and you can download a PDF copy of our presentation by clicking in the resource box on the bottom left of our console. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. And if you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit our webinar help guide by clicking on the Help ? Icon on the bottom right of our console. If slides are not advancing, please press the F5 key on your keyboard to refresh your browser. And now on to our presentation, Reduce Costs and Speed Up Your SAP SuccessFactors Implementation. Discussing today's topic will be Sapna Raj, Sales Director of North America for Accenture Software for Human Capital Management, Ari Levin, Global Pre-Sales Lead, also with Accenture Software for Human Capital Management, and Sanjay Mehta, Senior Director of Business Relationship Management for Global HR and Payroll with PepsiCo. First, we'll hear from Sapna.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'd like to start off by thanking everyone in the audience for taking the time to join us today. I also would like to say thank you to SAP for including Accenture in this webinar series of deploying innovative apps to extend SAP SuccessFactors Solution with SAP HANA Cloud Platform. So as part 3 of the series, today we will be sharing how innovations from Accenture and enhancements utilizing the SAP HANA Cloud Platform will help your project and company drive lower costs, greater speed, and higher quality of HR data and maximize your SuccessFactors solutions. We'll also share how to speed up your SuccessFactors implementation with Accenture's preconfigured high-velocity talent and HR solution. You'll also hear directly from PepsiCo and how they are utilizing the Audit and Compliance as a Service app to validate Employee Central data after each migration for their global EC implementation. So we have a jam-packed session for you today, so let me kick off by introducing myself. As Steve mentioned, my name is Sapna Raj, and I am a Sales Director with the North American Accenture Software for Human Capital Management team. The Accenture HCM software group has been in the HCM productivity space for well over 15 years now. We are exclusively focused on building HCM applications for SuccessFactors, EC Payroll, Employee Central, and SAP HCM on-premise. We have over 1,700 customers worldwide who either use our applications on their SAP HCM on-premise systems or in their SuccessFactors environments. So here, I'm just going to spend just a couple minutes to share our product portfolio. So to begin, first we have Data Comparison Manager, or also known as DCM. Data Comparison Manager automates the extraction, translation, and transformation of HR data from SAP HCM systems or legacy HCM systems for migration to Employee Central. It can easily and quickly create load files in the proper formats for Employee Central using predefined templates. In a few short minutes, Ari will share more details of Data Comparison Manager as well as the applications on the right side of your screen. Next, we have Clone and Test. Clone and Test for SAP HCM on-premise, as well as for SuccessFactors. This application allows organizations to conduct realistic testing in non-productive instances. Clone and test copies HR productive data and then scrambles that data so the sensitive personal information is not compromised by users who are not authorized to view this sensitive information. Moving to the middle of your screen, we have Audit and Compliance, which is an HR data quality console tool for SAP HR and payroll on-premise. This application leverages an organization's unique HR business rules to maintain their quality of HR data. On the cloud side, for SuccessFactors, we have Audit and Compliance as a service, and it helps with identifying and addressing HR data quality issues quickly and efficiently pre- and post-go-live. Moving on, we have our applications that help to streamline HR and employee correspondence within an organization. With Accenture Quick Document Builder, HR departments can generate large volumes of documents and correspondence for their employees and managers using data from their SAP HR on-premise systems. On the right, we have Accenture Document Composer, which enables HR users to quickly create templates and merge data directly from SuccessFactors. And lastly, we have the Accenture Time Entry Portal. So this application, popular with customers in the utility space, is a user-friendly way for the field force, folks in the field, to enter time and other critical data that feeds into SAP CATS, the cross-application timesheet. So folks, today organizations are rapidly adopting SuccessFactors to transform their corporate human resources functions. So many customers have already begun this transformational journey, while others are formulating their first steps. So in order to achieve this journey at a lower cost, greater speed, and higher quality, we will share with you our complementary apps for SuccessFactors, which are powered by the HANA Cloud Platform. So, the HANA Cloud Platform. What is it? The HANA Cloud Platform is SAP's platform as a service. It provides organizations with a development platform to quickly build new applications, extend existing applications, such as the case with SuccessFactors, and it allows companies to integrate apps and data to easily, but most importantly, seamlessly integrate into their SuccessFactors systems. So, the HANA Cloud Platform allows HR business leaders and developers to focus on the business problem to solve instead of all the extra added items that are often associated with creating new applications. For instance, security, a good user experience, and as well integration. So this is all achieved with the HANA Cloud Platform. The HANA Cloud Platform also resides in the same SAP data centers as your SAP SuccessFactors operates in. With the HANA Cloud Platform, companies can also explore the many out-of-the-box applications that solve common HR business challenges. The HANA Cloud Platform is deployed globally with hundreds of customers, and you'll actually be hearing from one very shortly. Accenture Software is one of 400 plus partners who are developing pre-packaged applications on the platform today. So before I pass the baton over to Ari, to learn a little bit more about the HANA Cloud Platform, folks, you can go to hcp.sap.com. There's lots of information there, as well as information about Developers Edition. And you can also access the Application Center, where you'll find all the partner-built applications, including the ones Ari will share with you momentarily. Over to you, Ari.
Okay, thanks a lot, Sam, and I really appreciate the time, and thank you, folks, for giving us the time today. So again, I'm going to try to offer you, let's say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 or 6 different possibilities or solutions in terms of ways that you can reduce the costs and speed up your SuccessFactors implementations. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with one of our offerings called High Velocity Talent in HR. Now, this is something that our SuccessFactors consultants have developed, and what it is if we think about it, it's really a pre-packaged, pre-built solution that we come to the table with to be able to implement SuccessFactors with. So what does this mean? It means, well, imagine that we're trying to configure everything from scratch and start from the beginning. You're going to have a lot more work than if you're starting from a pre-built template. Okay? And so this is what we've done. We've basically created a pre-built template for you, and I'll talk about the specifics in a second. That really is an accelerator. It gets you started faster, and it will move you through the process quicker. Okay? And I think in general, we expect that the projects that are done with the high-velocity talent and HR solution from Accenture are about 30% faster than other projects. Okay? So why? Well, what we're doing is we're coming to the table basically with a pre-built solution. So this is an end-to-end pre-built solution. This means that we start off with a predefined process. We would walk through the process flows with you, discuss where we need to change, where it's okay to stay, and kind of different outliers. And then we move into configuration workbooks that are already pre-built that we can use as a basis for doing the configuration in your system. And then ultimately we're going to move to the ready-to-use test scripts. So all of these things, pre-built configuration, pre-built process flows, pre-built test scripts that are waiting and ready to go, all combined to reduce effort substantially in a SuccessFactors implementation. So if you hear the Accenture High Velocity Talent and HR solution, this is a brief sneak peek, and certainly we can talk more about that in the future. Now what I'm going to do is I'll move to our applications for SuccessFactors. So I guess we'll do two different classifications here real quick. So one is our HCP applications, so applications that are running on top of the HANA Cloud Platform, and I will try to provide a little more context there. And then the other would be applications that are running on an SAP HCM system or maybe an EC payroll system that allow us to move to SuccessFactors faster. Okay? And we'll start with, if you can see this little puzzle slide that we have here, the top left, which is Data Comparison Manager. Okay? Now let me just kind of fast forward here a little bit and make sure that you guys are on the same slide as I am, but I think we're okay now. Okay, perfect. So when we talk about conversion, moving to SuccessFactors, the tool that we've developed and is probably about a decade old now is called Data Comparison Manager. And just by the way, some history for you, because DCM doesn't sound specifically like a conversion tool. What we did way back when was we developed a tool that we use for parallel payroll testing. Okay? And if you think about a parallel payroll, what you do is you gather lots of data from different systems, so potentially an EC payroll system, potentially, and maybe it's an old legacy payroll system of some sorts. And what we're doing is we're gathering the data, we're transforming the data on both sides, and then we're exporting that transformed data to do a comparison to each other. Okay? And so that was DCM originally. We used it for parallel payroll testing, and then eventually what we did was we cut off we cut up the comparison side really and just created one stream that allows us to gather data, so basically extract it from an SAP system or from legacy systems, to transform that data into the appropriate structures for SuccessFactors, and then to create the load file ultimately. So that's a very high level for DCM. And if you think about challenges with your conversion and validation activities, really, when it comes to Employee Central, one of the biggest challenges we see is a large volume of data, right? And there's all these decisions you need to make around data, like do we do historical conversion? How do we do record splits if we're going to do historical conversion? Are we taking top of stack? Are we taking active employees versus inactive, et cetera? These are all things that we've kind of thought about to a certain extent. And then we deal with parallel payroll testing or, let's say, validation of conversion load files. We're really dealing with, again, multiple systems involved, multiple ways of reading data, complex translation rules to be able to do comparisons, et cetera. And then, down the line, even as important as the actual conversion itself is making sure that we appropriately deal with the project structure, right? So that means making sure that our stakeholders are well informed, up to date, making sure that we have the ability to report accurately on how our conversion is going across iterations, et cetera. So this is really why we continue to develop and put a very heavy focus on Data Comparison Manager for conversion to Employee Central and other modules of SuccessFactors. And there on my screen now you can see, from a high-level perspective, the scenarios that we're trying to hit here. I think most important on the left is migration, so moving data from SAP HCM or other legacy systems to SuccessFactors, specifically Employee Central, though other modules are fine as well. And then ultimately, to a lesser extent, we're validating that data after the fact. So we're comparing source SAP HCM data to target Employee Central data and making sure, including conversion rules, that those two sets of data match up after conversion with a one-button click effectively. Okay? And then we have further scenarios that we're dealing with here around regression and reconciliation. So, for example, if you have some sort of interface either to an on-premise payroll system or potentially to EC payroll, making sure that those two systems stay in sync, by comparing that data on an ongoing basis in a easy, repeatable fashion. These are all the types of things that we're thinking about with Data Comparison Manager. So really a very great tool for being able to convert from SAP HCM to SuccessFactors Employee Central. We thought of a lot on this one, and continue to pour in a lot of effort and time into making sure that it's really a beautiful and useful conversion tool. Things like making sure that we always update the conversion templates or can use the appropriate templates from our clients, making sure that we have the appropriate data collection from whether it's SAP HCM or maybe it's something from payroll or maybe it's something around foundation objects that would allow us to take a combination of different data from different areas of SAP HCM. These are all things we've thought about and put into place. Even things like delta loads. So if you look at a large conversion where you're going to be converting data over the course of a period of time, we also have the ability to do delta loads with this. So really a tool that's kind of very well-rounded, very mature, and allows us to convert to Employee Central. So, and apologize for the sniffles there. I have a bit of a cold with allergy season, but we'll keep plugging forward here. So that was Data Comparison Manager. Remember, worthwhile mentioning that was an on-premise tool, sits within an SAP NetWeaver system. Doesn't have to be HCM, but typically is. And then the remaining applications I'll be talking about are applications that sit on top of the HANA Cloud Platform. Okay? And as we get into these HCP actions, we'll just have another quick word on HCP, but just to make it a little bit more real for everybody again. HCP is really a way that we can create new functionality within the cloud and interface that functionality within SuccessFactors. So if we look at the old SAP on-premise world, obviously we have the situation where if we need some new functionality through an extension, we write some ABAP, we have direct access to the database. We can basically incorporate that functionality into our on-premise system natively and immediately. Okay? Now, with the cloud, it's a little bit more of a challenge because we have no access to the SuccessFactors code, and we have no direct access to the SuccessFactors database. Right? So what we do is we have an application that runs on a server that sits within the SuccessFactors data centers, and then we're communicating back and forth to that SuccessFactors server in the data center using standard APIs that SuccessFactors has provided for us to be able to both read and write that data. So that's kind of how an extension works in the HANA Cloud Platform. And I think a really great example of this is Clone and Test. Okay, so we've had a tool called Clone and Test out there for, I want to say over 15 years now, maybe close to 20, which is pretty spectacular if you think about it from an on-premise perspective. And something like 1,700 customers globally using that tool, Clone and Test, for SAP HCM. And the initial use cases were around being able to copy data from one system to another or within the existing system, and being able to scramble that data for security purposes. So making sure that we have the ability to take private information and make it unrecognizable so that we have the ability to use that data for testing purposes without having a security risk. And when we moved that to SuccessFactors, we kept the use cases intact, and that's what we do now. We have the ability with Clone and Test for Cloud to be able to copy data from one company code to another, and we have the ability to scramble that data, whether it's in flight as we copy or at rest in a specific system. And we also have the ability to duplicate that data to make copies of that data. So if we think of some of the use cases here, obviously we're dealing with initially a implementation perspective, so we want to have additional test data to be able to carry out our testing within SuccessFactors. We want to be able to take our data after our mock conversions that may be real data and then scramble that data appropriately so that we can use that data for testing with the large group of testers that we might have testing our environment. And then we may want to, on an ongoing basis, copy data from production down to our QA environment to be able to do debugging or to be able to test out new releases, new functionality, etc. And that's really what we're doing, what the aim is from Clone and Test for Cloud. Now, I should mention that at the moment, Clone and Test for Cloud is a tool for Employee Central and Employee Profile, but we are continuously adding additional fields from areas of SuccessFactors like compensation, succession, etc., as those fields become available through the APIs that SuccessFactors puts out. So, in a nutshell, that's Clone and Test for Cloud. Again, these HCP applications are amazing in that the time it takes to deploy an application like Clone and Test for Cloud is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a half an hour, and then it's up and running and ready and available to use for testing purposes in your SuccessFactors implementations or going forward from a sustainment perspective. So really, really great and easy to put into place. Okay, the next tool that we'll discuss briefly here is Accenture Document Composer. And the whole idea here is that it can be a real challenge to be able to create correspondence for employees. So what do I mean by correspondence? I mean, if you think about the types of documents that you're sending out to your employees today, where you're taking information from your source system of record, which is SuccessFactors in this case, probably Employee Central, and you're pushing that data out to employees, right? So we're talking about things like employment verification letters, maybe it's visa letters, maybe it's benefit statements, maybe it's something on the recruiting side around offer letters. I think if you probably sit down and think about it for a couple of minutes, you'll come up with 5, 10, 15, 20 documents. I think most of the organizations we work with have almost literally hundreds of documents that they're creating for their employees, hundreds of different types of documents that they're creating for their employees in different iterations and variations of some sorts. And what we're trying to do with Doc Composer is really give you a very easy WYSIWYG editor to be able to create those documents. And what do I mean by that? I mean what you see is what you get. So we're trying to give functional business users the ability to type out a document, choose some fields from SuccessFactors, add some beautiful formatting, including graphics, including conditional formatting for different types of text for different types of business users or employees, and then to be able to produce those documents very quickly and easily across a large spectrum of employees, whether it's a single employee receiving a document through ESS or some sort of self-service function, if it's a manager trying to produce documents for their employees, or if it's a shared service center that's trying to create 100,000 total benefits or total reward statements to be emailed out to their employees at the end of the day. These are the types of use cases that we're looking for from a SuccessFactors perspective. Now, it's worthwhile mentioning that obviously SuccessFactors has a native document creation system in place to be able to do basic documents, and we understand that that's there. What we're really trying to do is provide a lot more functionality to the table for organizations who don't want to use a vanilla function here to be able to create very simple and straightforward documents, but need nice formatting, need conditional text, and be able to create text and use it from different areas of SuccessFactors outside of just very standard fields, and really create these rich documents that can be used going forward and emailed out to employees, because we know that the documents that our employees see from the system today is extremely important, much more so than it used to be 10 years ago, and we want these things to look as pretty as possible and as professional as possible, certainly. So just to recap a little bit there, but we have a really beautiful integrated editor into SuccessFactors. That's what you see is what you get, so very pretty to look at, very easy to use, really just typing the document out, choosing your fonts, choosing the fields you want to use from SuccessFactors, adding headers and footers, adding logos, etc., and then generating those and sending them out, whether it's via email or as a big PDF or whatever it might be. So that's Accenture Doc Composer. Okay? I think a really neat thing that we have right now that we're working on, this is a sneak preview, but this was feedback for us from our friends in the consulting business, who basically told us that they wanted to have some way of being able to load SuccessFactors with business scenarios. So obviously we have the ability today with SuccessFactors to do conversions, to use very technically specific files to load into SuccessFactors to get our base data there. Okay? Now, if we think about an old on-premise system where we would have the ability to carry out mass actions like a mass hire, a mass termination, a mass pay change. At the moment, from a business functionality perspective, there's no way to really do that for most actions, business actions in SuccessFactors. And so what we've done with the HANA Cloud Platform is basically create this online spreadsheet that you can use that would be populated with the appropriate data that you would want to have mass loaded into the system. It's geared very specifically towards a business action like mass hire or mass termination. It's customized very specifically towards the individual client's requirement around which fields would need to be loaded in it as part of a mass hire, mass pay change, etc. It's very straightforward in that you put the information in the online spreadsheet that we have. You can load a CSV file or an Excel file, for example. You can hit a button. You'll have the ability to be confronted with the data that's going to go into the system, and then it will load in the system with the appropriate regular messages, including confirmation and easy to read and business-specific error messages that you could understand. Right? So these are all things that came back from our from discussions with our consulting practice, and this is one that we're particularly excited about that will be available in the near future. That we're working on now, and that if anybody's at Success Connect, I'm more than happy to show it to them there, so you can see a sneak preview. So the last tool that we'll talk through quite quickly here is Audit Compliance as a Service, and I won't steal Sanjay's thunder here because he's going to be speaking about how Pepsi's using this tool very shortly, but I think it's really a very interesting use case with respect to either going live, so project implementation, or sustainment. So one of the things we noticed, again, from the old on-premise days, shouldn't say old on-premise days, but the on-premise days, is that data compliance and data quality are extremely important, but sometimes overlooked until problems start to crop up. And really what we're trying to do with Audit Compliance as a Service is that we're trying to solve this whole data quality, data compliance issue with a very simple, straightforward dashboard that will prompt a business user with the data quality issues that they have in the system. Okay, so some very simple examples of this are, making sure that all the fields and success factors that we expect to be populated for each employee individually are populated. Okay, so making sure that somebody has an email address, for example, very straightforward, simple example. And then number two, that the data that we see in those fields is reasonable, right? So if somebody has an email address, making sure that that email address is at ourcompany.com, right? And that's a very simple, straightforward example, but we're trying to do this on a large scale with potentially 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 1,000 rules, whatever makes sense for your specific organization. So basically turning on business rules that will constantly get monitored, will constantly monitor for in the system against the data that's in that system, right? So we have all of these different rules that are in place that we've talked through with, whether it's with our HR or our payroll business or benefits, or maybe it's with our auditors. We turn them on, and then our system becomes intelligent. We don't have to go looking for those specific issues. We don't have to do reports through ORD or ad hoc or whatever it might be that we can extract from the system and then go searching through the data to try to find the issues. We're going to be proactive, really upfront, as far upfront as we can in the process, and monitor constantly for that data, right? And even more so important being that more people transact in SuccessFactors than ever did in our old on-premise systems, whether it's the employees themselves or the managers or the HR people or shared service or whatever it might be. We have a lot of people transacting in those systems, so we want to be able to monitor the data that's going into the system on an ongoing basis. So what Audit Compliance will do is, again, allow you to choose from a list of about 1,000 best practice rules, create new rules, turn them on, have the system constantly monitor for them, and then prompt you or confront a business user with that data as soon as it's found in the system. Okay, again, this was our first tool that was developed from an HCP perspective, and so it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 years mature now, so relatively mature. We're continuing to develop this tool, and I should say one of the things we're looking at right now is dealing with some automation through this tool, so not just prompting a user that they have 500 instances of salaried employees who have hourly pay components, but potentially allowing you to fix those automatically through this tool. So that's not quite there yet, but it's something that we're working on at the moment. Is basically that, let's call it that intelligence to automate the resolution of some types of errors. Obviously, there's a lot of types of errors that can't be automatically resolved, but we're working on that now. And really just kind of make a nice, simple, straightforward, proactive process that allows you to monitor data quality. Okay, so maybe I'll stop there. That's a pretty good introduction to our suite of tools plus Accenture's high-velocity talent and HR solution. What I'll do briefly is pass it back to you, Steve, and then you can pass it to Sanjay. Or maybe go directly to Sanjay.
Okay, yeah. So hi, everyone. This is Sanjay Mehta, and what I'm going to do is briefly talk about how we are using the Accenture's audit and compliance tool as a service on the HANA Cloud Platform for our Employee Central implementation worldwide. So if we go to the next slide, I think most of you know, of course, PepsiCo. I'm very sure. We are a global company that operates in about 80 countries, and of course, we manufacture and distribute beverages and snacks. We have about 270,000 employees that are based in 80 countries, and we sell to the consumers worldwide. So I'll give you a little bit background. So we have been on an Employee Central, SuccessFactors Employee Central implementation over the last couple of years, and we are deploying worldwide in 80 countries where we have employees based. And currently we are live with 78 countries, and we only have 2 major countries remaining to go live. So the challenge that we were trying to solve was that for each of the countries that we were going and implementing SuccessFactors Employee Central solution, was that the employee data, which is the core foundational data, was coming from many sources. In some large countries, we already had implemented SAP HCM, but in many countries, it was local HR MS system. The other complicating factor is that we have many interfaces, where we feed the data within Employee Central to many other systems, including the benefit systems, payroll systems. So it is absolutely critical for us that the data that is going from Employee Central to these other systems is accurate and timely and correct, right? Any incident that we encounter where we have missing data or incorrect data has a direct impact on our payroll, accuracy of our payroll or our benefits or many other systems. So if we go to the next slide. So in order to solve this challenge, we have utilized Accenture's audit and compliance tool as a service. The tool is deployed in the cloud on the HANA Cloud Platform. And we have many rules, business rules that we have activated on the Accenture Audit and Compliance tool. Some of the rules are global, as in they apply to every country, and some of the rules are local, as in they only apply to specific country or specific region. And there are many examples of these rules where we ensure that the payroll data or benefits data or the employee's core information is correctly populated. The way we are using the tool is twofold. One is that we use it during the deployment, right? So we utilize the tool to validate that the data that we have loaded, that we have cleansed, that we have verified is correct using the Accenture's audit and compliance tool, right? And not only we are using the tool and the solution during the implementation, we also have it as a part of our go no-go criteria. So at the end of the release, when we as a steering committee evaluate whether we are going to move forward or not, one of the key criteria that we have is the validation results and what is the accuracy that we are seeing, and how many errors still exist within the solution. And so from that angle, the Accenture Audit and Compliance tool is very invaluable because it helps us make a call whether we are ready to go live or not. And through the tool and through knowing how many errors exist and how many we have already fixed, it helps us know what we can expect in terms of the accuracy of the payroll and benefit systems, which are fed by the Employee Central data. One of the things that the users really like is that not only they can check the quality of data through these business rules, but that the fixing of these data errors can also be done very easily because the solution is linked directly into Employee Central solution. So each of the responsible HR person can view the errors for a specific country that they are responsible, but can also fix it, and those fixes are integrated into Employee Central. Before we were using the Accenture Audit and Compliance tool, right? We would have to do a lot of these validations externally, which significantly increases the effort, and also it's not as seamless and as user-friendly as we could. Versus utilizing the tool helps us request specific business rules, code the business rules. Accenture codes the business rules as per our requirements, and so it's much more streamlined and much more user-friendly way that we are able to validate the data. And I already mentioned that we not only have the ability to now fix the data and improve the data quality, but we are also able to monitor the quality of the data through the dashboard, and then we utilize these as part of our no-go decision for each country. The secondary way that we do use it is on an ongoing basis. We still continue to check the quality of data for countries that have gone live, right? So this is not just a one-time process, but we do it repeatedly because, of course, as transactions are done, you still have a chance that some of the data is not correct or is not meeting the business rules that we have established. So I think that's all I have. The tool has been very invaluable for us in our implementation. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that are specific to PepsiCo's implementation of the solution in the Q&A session. So, Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Very good. Thank you. Excellent presentations for everybody. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to the audience Q&A portion of our event. But before we do that, we also want to make sure that our audience can please fill out a feedback form. It's a survey that will open on your desktop in a moment. And when we send that to you, if you could please fill that out, we'd greatly appreciate it. It helps us to prepare for future events. Also want to let you know that this is part 3 of our webcast series. So we're going to push out a link for you to register in case you want to join our next webcast, which is scheduled for September 29th. Enable Agile, Efficient, and Easy HR Administration with NGA HR's SAP SuccessFactors Extension Solutions. So you can join that. We also have 2 other webcasts. If you missed that, you can also register for those. So hope to hope to see you there in the future. We do have a lot of great questions, so let's get started with our first one here. It is from Vijay, who wants to know, do you have any tools for payroll calculations like Payroll Control Center? Who'd like to take that?
Hey, I'll take it, Steve. Thank you. So, yes, we do. I talked briefly about audit compliance for SuccessFactors. So we also have an audit compliance that works for SAP HCM Payroll as well as EC Payroll. And that tool plugs directly into Payroll Control Center to provide audit and reporting capabilities to basically make that intelligent system for Payroll Control Center for EC Payroll as well as SAP HR Payroll. So not the best answer, but certainly if you'd like, contact me afterwards. I'll walk you through how that works for Payroll Control Center and how it can really add a lot of value to the Payroll Control Center framework.
Great, and there people can see the contact information.
Steve,
yes.
It looks like there's a follow-up question from Vijay addressed to Sanjay. Sanjay, Vijay's asking, is your payroll on SuccessFactors or on ECC? And if it is on SuccessFactors, Vijay's wondering what kind of tools are you using?
Okay, great question. Our payroll is not on SuccessFactors. Our payroll is actually SAP HCM payroll, on-premise payroll. So having said that, we do use the Accenture Audit and Compliance for the on-premise as well for the SAP HCM payroll.
And Vijay, that was the tool that I just mentioned for Payroll Control Center as well, so just to make sure you got that. Thanks, Sanjay. And go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Kathy has a question here. What type of time frame will the mass update tool be available?
Yeah, good question. So we've had a lot of interest in this one, and a lot of questions come back around mass updates. So I think it's an area of SuccessFactors that's really hit a nerve, and that's great. And we're looking forward to that. So I would say that we will be using this with a select group of customers over the course of the next couple of months, wrapping up towards a full go live by the end of the year. So that will be kind of boxed into very specific business scenarios as the feedback comes back from customers in terms of which scenarios they want. So remember, I listed off things like mass termination, mass hire, mass pay change, etc. So I would love to have more feedback from different customers. So if you feel like that's something that's interesting to you, get in touch with me right away. Or if you're at Success Connect, I'd love to speak to you there and show you this in person. But the more information we have from our customers, the better, so that we can make sure we steer this in the right direction. But so, again, just to answer the question, we have some customers that will be using this over the next couple of months, and ultimately by the end of the year, we're hoping to go into full release.
Great. Jorg has a question. What is the pricing model for Accenture for SuccessFactors? Is it a license or is it a subscription model?
Thanks, Steve. I can take that. So the pricing model for audit and compliance, as well as the other HCP apps that we offer, Clone and Test, as well as Doc Composer, it follows the similar model that SuccessFactors have, which is a subscription model. So I can certainly provide more information to Jorg regarding pricing for his company, but essentially it follows a subscription monthly per employee per month rate.
Excellent. Sapna, here's a question for you from William. Says his company has partnered with another consulting firm for his EC rollout, but does this mean we can't have these types of apps?
Yeah, absolutely. So our business model is essentially we provide productivity apps to all customers. So half of our customers are certainly Accenture consulting clients. The other half are non-Accenture consulting clients. So if you folks have a different system integrator, no problem. All of our tools are there to help your organization's productivity. So absolutely.
And it's worthwhile also to mention that Sapna and I represent the Accenture Software for Human Capital Management business. And this is a separate business within Accenture separate from the consulting business, that deals just with commercial value, commercial grade software that adds value to the SuccessFactors and SAP systems. And so again, doesn't need to be a Accenture consulting client, just have to have interest in the software.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer wants to know, or Jennifer is planning to be at Success Connect 2016 at the end of August. Will there be specific presentations at the conference which cover these apps and the HANA Cloud Platform? Maybe for you, Sabna?
Yep, absolutely. So thanks, Jennifer. We are certainly attending Success Connect in Las Vegas next week. We certainly welcome all folks to drop by the Accenture booth. We're going to be at Accenture, the booth number is number 4, and we will be delivering the HCP, the applications that Ari had mentioned today. We have some demonstrations scheduled for Tuesday, August the 30th. I believe it's at 11 o'clock Pacific time, as well as 2:30 Pacific time on the Tuesday, as well as we'll be delivering some demos at the HANA Cloud Platform Pod, both on the August 30th and August 31st at noon. But please feel free to drop by our booth, and we can certainly do ad hoc demonstrations as well.
Great. Question for Sanjay. Any future plans about leveraging the HANA Cloud Platform for other HR apps?
Yeah, great question. So we have started looking at the clone and test area for Employee Central, and so it is something that I believe we will very soon be moving into. So I don't yet have experience to share, but that is something we feel will be very valuable in speeding up how quickly can we replicate and stand up environments.
Okay, Subhash wants to know or mentions about any customers that have HCP, or can they use Accenture's HCP in a subscription model?
Yeah, good question. So we've done an awful lot of work with the SAP HCP folks to kind of come together with respect to subscriptions and pricing for our applications. But ultimately at the moment, you would have a subscription for our applications and then a separate subscription with SAP for HCP. Now again, like I said, we've done a lot of work with the HCP team to make sure that we can bundle appropriately and so that you know what type of subscription you need to HCP for applications, just for applications, for example, or maybe you want a subscription for more than just our applications to be able to use HCP for a wider array of uses, right? So if you already have an existing HCP subscription, fantastic. If you don't yet, we can certainly connect you with the right folks from SAP, and I think Tony's in the line from HCP today who could certainly help us point in the right direction. But it is a separate subscription for HCP outside of our applications.
We have time for a few more, so let's get to this one for Ari. Does the audit and compliance as a service app need to be turned on after we go live on EC?
Yeah, good question. So again, I mentioned that in general, an HCP application is like something like a half an hour, 2 hours worth of work to turn on. And then obviously with something like audit and compliance, we would have some workshops and discussions in terms of what rules to turn on for individual customers. But there's really both a business case or a use case for pre-go live, so that's the implementation, and post-go live. So from pre-go live perspective, you're going to want to make sure that you have audit compliance turned on and running to make sure that the data that you converted into the system is the data that you expected to convert and also matches your appropriate tolerances and rules around data quality and compliance in the system for go live. You want to make sure that you're going live with as clean and good data as possible. And then post-go live, obviously you're going to use this in more of a monitoring capacity to deal with the data that's coming into the system on a regular basis, whether by input from a user or by interface or some other method. We want to be able to monitor that data going forward. So there's both a pre and post go live use case here, and we would certainly turn it on beforehand for that pre-go live use case, and then afterwards, just a question of when you want to start monitoring the data.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Ari, why did Accenture Software choose SAP HANA Cloud Platform to develop productivity-boosting applications for SAP SuccessFactors?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've been working with the HCP team for, I want to say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 or 7 years. Really, it was right around the time that SuccessFactors was acquired. And really, we saw this as the only, let's say, the best way forward to be able to have that tight interlock with SAP and SuccessFactors applications, really. So, there are other, obviously, platform as a service vendors out there, but none of them would give you the types of integration offerings that SuccessFactors has with HCP. So we're talking about making sure that the data sits in the same data center, which is extremely important, and effectively does away with a lot of concerns and discussions around security, because it's really the same security discussion around SuccessFactors as it would be for HCP. We want to make sure that we have the really rich integration offerings around making sure that we're tightly integrated into the SAP platform, whether it's single sign-on for SuccessFactors, whether it's using or utilizing widgets within SuccessFactors, even menu patches within SuccessFactors to access our HCP applications. It really just, HCP makes the most sense for SAP cloud applications, whether it's SuccessFactors, Ariba, Hybris, whatever it might be. There's just so many different tools available to really tightly integrate the HCP applications into our target systems like SuccessFactors. So while you could potentially use a different platform as a service, it would be significantly more effort and a whole lot more complex for us to create in the first place around security and integration, and it just doesn't make sense when there's a really great platform out there like HCP. I should mention that our HCP experiences thus far are, number one, it's a very stable platform. Okay, so we haven't had issues with stability for the most part. It's extremely well documented, so it's been very easy for our developers to actually pick up HCP and develop appropriately. And the interlock from the SAP folks has been fantastic. So that means that when we have issues or questions around HCP, we have a direct line to the HCP folks to help us get our questions resolved quickly, and professionally. And that's been really a very, very positive and great experience for our team to work hand in hand with those HCP guys. So I can't say enough good things about HCP, and we will continue to use it in the future.
Excellent. Dennis thinks that some of these tools will help him with an upcoming Employee Central SuccessFactors rollout. Can he rent the tools for a short duration, say 9 months or so?
Yeah, Steve, I'll take that up now. Absolutely. So in particular with migration projects, the Data Comparison Manager tool can certainly be used during that migration, and we recommend it being used shortly after post-go live as well. But it certainly can be rented for a shorter amount of time, for 9 months or 12 months to 15 months. Yeah, absolutely. So Dennis can certainly contact me for more information about that.
Great. Ari, here's a question for you. Our EC project will start mock conversions in about 5 weeks. Does that leave enough time to enable the Audit Cloud app?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned that we can do this for both pre- and post-go-live from an audit and compliance perspective. So I think if you're starting conversion, we really wouldn't do much until your data was in these systems, so after conversion. So 5 weeks leaves us with more than enough time to deploy, which I said is an extremely quick activity, as well as have, let's say, 1 or 2 workshops to determine which rules we want to turn on and monitor for, and then basically use your data model to do that. So 5 weeks is more than enough time, typically speaking, to stand up, in a basic implementation, we would want somewhere in the neighborhood of a week to deploy, let's say, configure appropriately for your solution and turn on a group of rules. Now that can obviously ramp up, depending on how many rules you're putting into place. So if it's 20 rules versus 1,000 rules, it's going to take a lot longer for 1,000 rules. But still, we're certainly not talking many month-long projects here. We're talking, ideally in the neighborhood of a couple of weeks.
Great, Ari. Maybe a follow-up here, but how long does it take to install the Accenture apps?
Yeah, so in general, the HCP applications are somewhere in the neighborhood of a half an hour to an hour to deploy. Right? So if we take Cloud and Test for Cloud, for example, there's minimal involvement from a customer, so very minimal involvement required from a customer, and half an hour, let's say, to deploy the application, then it can be used immediately. Same thing, probably similar timelines for Accenture Doc Composer to create documents. And then when we're talking about audit and compliance, installed in the same time frame, but some more work around some discussions to determine which are the best rules to put into place for your organization. And that discussion obviously takes some time, but then turning the rules on themselves is quite quick. So in general, like I said, deploying these applications and turning them on is, it's less than a day's worth of activities, but if there may be some requirements for some discussions around configuration sometimes, which could take some more time. But we're not talking we're not talking months projects here. We're talking certainly in the neighborhood of a week to weeks.
I'm going to squeeze in another one here for Sapna. How are the Accenture extension apps priced?
Thanks, Steve. So the Accenture applications are priced by it follows a subscription model, and it's priced by the number of employees an organization has. They can certainly be purchased a la carte, so if you want to start with audit and compliance and continue adding applications, you certainly can. There's also bundled packages as well.
Okay, great. And then maybe one more here for you, Ari. Do customers get pre-configured or best practice settings in these apps?
Yeah, so really the only one that would apply to is audit and compliance, and we come to the table with about 1,000 different rules that they could put into place based off of best practice and some of the things we picked up from various clients. Obviously scrubbed with individual client details, but yes, absolutely, we bring our best practices to the table with respect to audit and compliance and the rules that we would put into place for you.
Okay, and then, hey, how about this one? How is the high velocity talent and HR offering priced, and Accenture apps priced as well?
Yeah, so I think that's a question that's better left to some folks who are colleagues of mine on the consulting side. So if whoever asked the question wants to get in touch with me, I can direct it to the appropriate people to answer that. But in general, I think that we come to the table with the high velocity offering. So if a customer is going to use Accenture as an integrator for SuccessFactors in general, then we would come to the table with the high velocity offering as part of that project. And it wouldn't necessarily be a piece of software that's priced into it. It would just be an accelerator for the project.
Okay, great. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this session. So if we didn't get to your question during the live broadcast, someone will be able to follow up with you over the next few business days. I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar, Reduce Costs and Speed Up Your SAP SuccessFactors Implementation, hosted by SAP Insider, presented by SAP and Accenture. Shortly after this live event, we'll send you an email reminder to access this presentation on demand. And on behalf of our guests, Sapna Raj, Sales Director, North America with Accenture Software for Human Capital Management, Ari Levin, Global Pre-Sales Lead with Accenture Software for Human Capital Management, and of course, Sanjay Mehta, Senior Director of Business Relationship Management for Global HR and Payroll with PepsiCo. We want to thank you for your time, and have a great day.